with Attorney Michael Yusingco, Senior Research Fellow at the Ateneo Policy Center. Good morning. Welcome to the program.
Good morning, Gretchen, and good morning to all the viewers and listeners of the program.
Okay, Attorney Michael, siguro unang katanungan, no, ay maaari bang ma-dismiss ng ganon-ganon lang itong impeachment trial that is supposed to happen through a resolution? Your thoughts?
Of course, the direct answer is no. Hindi pwede. Hindi pwedeng mangyari yun. No? Kasi balik tayo dun sa ano ba yung impeachment. So impeachment is a constitutional process. No? That means the boundaries of the process itself is set by the Constitution. No? So sa Constitution natin, walang nakalagay doon na pwedeng i-dismiss ang impeachment complaint. In fact, very clear, ang nakalagay sa ating saligang batas is that once the Senate receives the articles of impeachment, trial shall commence forthwith, immediately. So, dapat magka-trial. Hindi pwedeng outright dismissal. So, the Constitution, additionally, envisions only two outcomes, either conviction or acquittal of the person impeached.
Walang dismissal.
Walang dismissal na nakalagay dun sa ating saligang batas. So direct answer is hindi pwedeng ma-dismiss ang isang impeachment complaint.
So mali itong sinasabi ni Senate Majority Leader Francis Tolentino that if the trial does not begin now, it would be functionally dismissed.
Yes, it has no legal basis at all. No?
Okay. But Senator Tito Soto has said that he found out the impeachment has never been referred to the Senate Rules Committee. Parang inupuan itong impeachment articles na ito. How do we exact accountability in the Senate? Is the Supreme Court the only body that can hold them to that?
Actually, Gretchen, maybe the Supreme Court also cannot, no? Kasi itong impeachment is a very special or particular responsibility given to the Senate as the institution, no? And kumbaga relies on the leaders of the Senate and the senators themselves to do the right thing, no? Pero hindi ko lang sure if the Supreme Court can impose on the Senate the standards, no, set by the Constitution. But definitely, tayong mga botante, tayong mga mamamayan, we can exact accountability, no? Kung gusto natin, no, given what the senators are doing now, no, na obviously delaying the impeachment trial. So on one hand, the Supreme Court might not have that power, but certainly the people, voters, have that power.
But there are already petitions before the Supreme Court looking at the jurisprudence of the Senate or the 19th Congress as a constitutional body being able to transcend into the 20th Congress. They're supposed to settle that. So pagdating doon, meron bang jurisdiction itong Korte Suprema? At hanggang saan? Ano yung limits ng kanilang power pagdating dito?
Yeah, that's a good question. No? So, yung issue na yon, Gretchen, that particular issue, yung can the impeachment trial transcend or continue between Congresses, yan ay hindi malinaw sa Constitution. No? So, we have to admit that. There is nothing in the Constitution that rules on that issue. And therefore, the Supreme Court has the power to come in and say, what does the Constitution actually envision with regards to this particular issue? So nandoon yung authority ng ating Supreme Court to rule on that particular issue, no. But as regards yung other issues na binanggit mo kanina, first of all, that has to be brought to the Supreme Court. But second of all, parang I hesitate to say that the Supreme Court can discipline the Senate regarding their behavior in this particular instance.
But what if there is no trial? It seems that senators, I mean, from an outsider point of view, are hesitant to put in their votes for either an acquittal or a conviction. What if this is dismissed? What could the public's recourse be?
That's the question, no? That's the interesting question. Kasi nung panahon ni Erap, yung impeachment ni Pangulong Erap, we know what happened, right? Nung hindi tinuloy yung trial, yung kinat yung trial, ano nangyari, di ba? EDSA dos, no? So, is that going to happen again here? That's certainly in the bag for our people, no? Sa ating mga kababayan, they can do that if they want to, or they can just remember what happened and then vote accordingly in 2028. Yan yung mga options na pwedeng mangyari if i-dismiss nila yung impeachment complaint.
Meron actually dalawang decision, no, that serves as jurisprudence dito for the Supreme Court. One is the Arnold versus Nazareno, saying that the Senate is a continuing body. That was in 1950. And the other one is Balag versus the Senate in 2019, saying that the chamber drops everything once it adjourns. Ano po kaya sa tingin ninyo yung magiging mas matimbang dun sa dalawa?
Well, ang pinakamatimbang siguro is yung another jurisprudence, yung Pimentel versus Joint Committee of Congress, saying na iba yung legislative function ng Senado, iba yung non-legislative function niya. No? So, yung sinasabi mong rules na everything ends once they adjourn sine die, that pertains to their legislative function, yung lawmaking functions nila. But their non-legislative functions, which impeachment is, it can carry over. No? It is a continuing responsibility because it is a responsibility given to the institution, not necessarily the senators who are elected at that particular Congress. So, I would say mas matimbang yung interpretation or yung ruling that the non-legislative functions of the Senate carries over between Congresses. Yun yung parang mas applicable dito sa particular issue na ito.
And does the Senate wait for the Supreme Court decision? How long do you think that would take for them to come out with that?
They shouldn't, no? They shouldn't. The Senate shouldn't. This is a failure of leadership in the Senate. The fact that they want to wait, or if they want to wait for the Supreme Court ruling, since there's no TRO anyway, because the Constitution is very clear. No? Trial shall commence forthwith. No? We are delayed by months already. February pa, dapat nasimulan na yung trial. No? So, the Senate, the senators, their leadership are all failing us at this particular moment because they are not following the command of the Constitution.
Well, sabi nga nila, meron daw mga urgent bills na kailangan mapasa. Kagabi, pinag-uusapan pa nila yung denatured alcohol. At the other day, yung MTRCB na parang, if compared to this, I mean, talagang napaka-urgent talaga, no? But, I mean, as an individual, is it just going out to the streets that is a recourse? Or is it possible to file cases against the Senate as a body or some senators?
Certainly not as the Senate as a body. No? I don't think there's a cause of action against the body itself, the institution itself. But certainly the erring senators, certain cases can be pursued against them, dereliction of duty, etc., etc. But that becomes moot. Eventually, it becomes moot, no, because of elections. No? So, really, the power of the people here is either through mass action or through the ballot.
And there needs to be enough public pressure to get these senators to proceed. Is that correct?
Dapat hindi ganun, no? Gretchen, dapat they should have done it on their own volition, no? Because the Constitution is clear, as I said. But as it is now, it seems na yung mga senador natin natutulog sa pansitan, kailangan talagang bulabugin, no, ng taong bayan, including you, media, us in the academe. We have to let them know na this is unacceptable, no, yung really brazen and continuing violation of the Constitution.
If and when the 19th Congress continues on to the 20th Congress and they start discussing this, is there room for question over the jurisdiction of the decision that will come about if this impeachment trial is held at sa dulo, no, maka-question din pala yung decision? Is there room for that?
I don't see any possibility for that, or any possibility of success, no? Because jurisdiction is very clear. The jurisdiction is very clear, no? Kaya nga hindi pwedeng yung motopropyo dismissal na pinopropose nila Senator Bato, no? Because jurisdiction is very clear, and the order or the directive of the Constitution is very clear, which is to conduct the trial. Now, with regards to the decision that they will render, whether acquittal or conviction, the Supreme Court may not have jurisdiction over that, no? Because that is that the Supreme Court might treat that as a political question, no? Na labas na kami dyan, unless of course there was really a brazen violation, no, of the Constitution in that decision itself. Pero if all the procedures were followed, due process was respected, the rule of law was respected, the decision might stand. Baka hindi makialam yung Korte Suprema doon.
Although, is it troubling? Is it going to be difficult, rather, that a lot of Filipinos are not for this impeachment? They don't want this impeachment trial to proceed. Does that create a heavy predicament for this to have some sort of political pressure on the Senate?
It shouldn't, no? It shouldn't, no? Although, syempre, they should respect what the people feel, no? Pero the point to be emphasized here is that the articles of impeachment are already in the Senate, no? They've been presented to the Senate, and therefore trial must commence immediately. So, by the very fact that there's already a constitutional directive on the senators, that should be the only consideration in their minds, no? Hindi na dapat yung mga very political
Correct.
Considerations, no? Although, syempre, in reality, those are there in their midst. No?
Well,
Hindi
the
nila
impeachment is
ma-avoid.
also a political exercise, di ba? Sabi nga nila. It is more of a political than legal exercise. Even if the grounds for culpable violation of the Constitution are there. But the other proposal is to finish this before June 30. Sinasabi ni Cheese Escudero, hindi posible yun kasi merong 10 days na kailangan ibigay to respond. Anong tingin po niyo doon?
Yeah, just reading the rules of the impeachment, I don't think that's even feasible. And I also won't advise it kasi we're talking about a constitutional process here, no? Which means we have to respect the due process of both sides.
Of hearing out,
and
yes.
also the rule of law. So, hindi pwedeng madaliin. Ayaw na nga natin na di-delay, pero hindi naman natin gustong i-railroad yung proseso, no? The point here is it has to be done. The trial has to commence immediately. Kahit na na-delay na siya for many months.
Okay, mukhang walang choice kundi tumawid, no, papunta sa susunod na Kongreso. And we will see what happens in the coming weeks. And if the senators do budge a bit on their stance. Maraming salamat for explaining things to us. We have Attorney Michael Yusingco, Senior Research Fellow at the Ateneo Policy Center.
Maraming salamat.